Hello and welcome to Not One Right Way, the podcast. It's me, Melissa Manuel, she, her, and
It's me, Marve Yaga, they, them, theirs.
how are you, Marv? Full of Olive Garden?
I did go to Olive Garden prior to this recording. Did you know they have gluten-free pasta?
I'm shocked, to be honest.
I also was shocked. It was okay. It was decent pasta. I feel like I've had better, but I've also had much, much worse. So props to them for having something that can be easily batch cooked and it's gluten-free. Go them.
Yeah. When you're here, you're here. The Olive Garden.
Yeah. How are you?
I'm okay. Work has been chaotic, but it's fine. I'm surviving. I went out and got like a nice bar dinner with my coworkers yesterday, and it's a lot of like coworkers who left came and had dinner with us. It's nice to see those faces and be like, ah, yes, there's a life beyond this job. If I ever change jobs, it's nice to see that, you know, be reminded of that. Like, you can work after the current job. I don't know. Sometimes you get stuck in the rut of like, I'm gonna work at this job forever. And it's good to be reminded. It's nice to see them.
Awesome.
Yeah. What are you watching?
I started watching Dexter.
Oh.
So to complement rewatching Criminal Minds with my dad, another serial killer show.
Sensing a trend, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to make up for the loss of Craig of the Creek in our life, I know. Jeff Trammell, one of the head writers of Craig of the Creek, his new show, Spider-Man Freshman Year, just dropped on Disney Plus. And it's so fun and really like a very fun take on the Spider-Man story. I don't know enough about Spider-Man lore to like understand the nuances of what he's doing, like the twists on everything, but I am having a great time, and I'm always happy to support Jeff Trammell because he's a great writer. So I've been watching that, and it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. You know, I was wondering at what point in the show you're going to bring up Craig of the Creek. I didn't expect it to be so soon, but
within the first 3 minutes, really early. Every time.
Awesome.
Well, I'm going to waste no more time because we have, I think, a celebrity guest with us today. There's no other way to put it. He's talk of the town on this podcast amongst our guests.
Truly.
His name is Joseph Knox. He's a senior producer at Free Range Games. Everybody welcome Knox. Knox. Hello. Welcome.
Hello,
you're in high demand around these parts. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, it seems like my reputation precedes me for sure. I mean, you kind of got the people, the right people on board. Because, like, I know with Monisha, like, I was one of the ones that got her the first interview, and Stephanie was the one I really fought for to pull up out of QA into production. And Grocky and myself, you know, when he was even in HR, we were pretty close. And I helped get him ready for, you know, being a producer. So he kind of got the perfect three to you know, vouch for me.
Yeah, they only said the nicest words.
Yeah.
Joseph Knox, great producer, really full of knowledge and really a people person. That would be someone I would recommend.
So we're excited to talk to you and learn about who you are and what makes you the producer you are today.
Mm-hmm. How we're going to start off. As you know, Knox, my background is in social work. I usually, day one, minute one, first conversation, let's talk about the hardest parts of your life, right?
Okay. Right now? Like just like in work or just like life in general? I mean,
in work usually.
Okay, I was saying because life is pretty hard outside of work too, but in work life, The hardest part about being a
Oh,
producer. What was that?
I should stop you. That was my setup to give you a really easy starter icebreaker question.
Oh, I, I don't know. It's like,
There,
okay, I'll open the book.
Knox is about to be like, "Here's all my deepest, darkest secrets."
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot there. I mean, yeah, life. Yeah, there's a lot of hard stuff, but that's the whole point. Keep going,
Yeah.
right?
I appreciate your openness with this conversation. My first question for you is if you were a Barbie, what would your Barbie accessory be?
What would
Wow.
my Barbie accessory be? Oh, I
Yeah.
don't know. Right now, it'd probably be like a barbell or a dumbbell. I'm kind of just getting really into the fitness thing right now. And just it helps clear your mind and gets you in a good state to start the day. I'm one of those people where I can't just work out after work. It has to be before. Like when I wake up, I'm like a momentum kind of person. Once you start moving, you keep moving, and then you just don't stop until you hit a wall at the end of the night. Not literally, of course, but it would probably be a barbell or a protein shake or something. I don't know.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Mine would
The
be
Barbie
a
that
little
works out.
laptop.
What was
Yeah.
that?
Mine would be a little laptop with PowerPoint pulled up.
Oh, nice.
Why PowerPoint?
That's my life. I don't know if I've ever explained to you how much PowerPoints I've made in my career. It's a lot.
The skill. You got to get at it.
That's fair. I make a lot of Canvas, which is basically PowerPoint. I'm on Canva 24/7 at my current job, making little presentations. I'm trying to think of what mine would be. I feel like I'm on my phone enough. I know it's pretty basic and every Barbie has a phone now, but I do use it a lot to work, to play Pokemon Go. Um, yeah, probably my phone.
Yeah. I would have guessed that you would say BBQ, the cat.
I did think that, but I'm like, he's not an accessory. He's his own person.
Whoa. That's so true. I'm so
Total gem.
sorry. I I'll just You're right. He's not a cute accessory. He's not a
He's
Christmas
friend shaped,
present. Yeah,
but he doesn't like to be hugged. So,
true.
Knox, I wanted to ask you, what is your favorite part of Scrum? Because I know you're Scrum certified, and like, it's as a producer, it's something we all talk about being like, yeah, we know Scrum, but like, what's your favorite part of the Scrum process?
I'm a big fan of Agile and Scrum, predominantly because of how flexible it is. I think a lot of people misuse it by thinking you have to do it by the book.
Mhm.
Exactly how it's written every single time. And the thing is, I'm a big fan of throwing it out there, seeing how it works, and molding it because every team has different strengths and different weaknesses. And any kind of process you roll out, it's always good just to get it out there and see what's working, what isn't, and then adapt accordingly. So my favorite part about Scrum is the fact that it is adaptable, and you use team feedback and you grow. And basically, when you do this kind of stuff, you always emphasize that and you use the team's information and feedback, and you always just sort of reminding the team of we're doing this together, we're building this together, and you get a lot of camaraderie and a lot of buy-in on the process and the product that way. So my favorite part is the fact that it is flexible through the use of everyone pulling on the same direction, which is really cool.
And on the same coin, your least favorite part is Scrum.
I think least favorite part of Scrum is that its initial rollout is super meeting heavy. Like I know it's always like, oh, you save time by having all these meetings, and I don't know if that's necessarily true. What usually ends up happening is we open the box, we get it out there, we put all the meetings on in people's calendars, and eventually we just start pulling them out where we see that they aren't necessary, and we let the team kind of decide that usually. But it does come off as incredibly meeting heavy and a little bit repetitious at first. I think it's more useful to be more repetitious in a work from home world where we're all remote. But with that being said, we take so much time in meetings already because of this, the remote world. It's tough to demand a lot from your devs when they're in meetings 4 or 5 hours a day. So I'm a big fan of like not even time, but uninterrupted time. Like I always do my best to try to shove things in the beginning or end of days or against lunch so that there's a lot of blocks of time where people could really get their hands dirty and start digging, as compared to staying surface level with a lot more of the difficult problems that they have to deal with.
Nice. Thank you for sharing. I always like asking producers about Scrum or like people who have the Scrum certification on their profile because I'm like, you've sat through the long
Yeah,
trainings. It kind of feels like a cult, and they're like, you have to do it just like this. I'm like, okay, it's really
yeah.
intense in here.
Oh,
Have
sorry.
you
Go
ever
ahead.
described yourself as a scrum master?
When I played rugby, yeah. I mean, I played that for 10 years. Oh, I was a tight head prop for probably 6 of those years, which is the scrum master. You're the one holding the whole thing up. And I was scrum
Mm.
half for a couple of years too, which you're not even in the scrum, but you get the name scrum half. That was more fun because you just yell at people. Basically, just yell at the referee the whole game. That's what a scrum half does. But a lot of fun.
Nice.
But I don't call myself that at work. I don't.
I've
That's fair.
always wondered because it's one of those things like Melissa's saying, like from the outside, it definitely looks a little cultish. It's like, do you use the funny name? Do you use the little cute name they give you?
I do not. I do not.
Did young Joseph Knox look within and be like, when I grow up, I want to be a scrum master and a senior producer? Or what was your first dream job? How did you become?
So, yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. So when I first was a little kid, I wanted to be in the army. I wanted to join the military and I wanted to be a ranger or a green beret. It was one of the first things I wanted to do. But the thing is, I actually have Erb's palsy, which is a birth trauma injury. So my right arm doesn't quite work right. So, that was kind of a doomed goal from the start because I wouldn't have been able to get, into the armed forces anyways because I couldn't even do like a legit push up. I still can't do pull ups, because I have like 1.5 arms. So, give me a break. But so that was my first one was to, serve America, be patriotic, hoorah, get that kind of stuff, be action hero of sorts. And then, yeah, I just a lot of thousand other things happened between then and when I became a QA tester first and eventually a producer. But I went to college for criminology, law, and society. Well, first I was physical sciences undeclared, and then I transferred to criminology, law, and society because I really felt a strong sense of justice. I took a class about human trafficking kind of as a breadth requirement and it really hit me in a way that I was like, I can do something about this. I thought I could. And so I switched to criminology. I like studied for the LSAT. I took it. I was applying to law schools. And then like it kind of hit me that it would be really expensive because I
Mhm.
got a full ride scholarship to undergrad. So I was like debt free, right? I was the only person out of all my friends that like not $100,000 in loans. So I was just like, do I really want to do this to myself? Like everyone else is freaking out about these loans and I'm not. So let's hold off for a second. And then I joined AmeriCorps for a couple years where I did everything from disaster relief to lumberjack to like cave expeditions to Boys and Girls Club, like tutoring and you name it, I did it more or less. And then I wanted to be in conservation. I was just like, sweet. I'm gonna be a smoke jumper. That's what I wanted to be. I don't know if you know what they do, but they jump out of airplanes to fight wildland firefighters. Wildland
Wow.
fires, right? So they're the people who strap chainsaws to their chests and jump out of planes. I was like, hell yeah, action hero, love that shit. Like, let's go. I'm sorry, I don't know if I can cuss, but that was my jam. I'm like, I can do this. I'm in the best shape of my life. Let's rock and roll. And then what ended up happening was I have ankylosing spondylitis, gesundheit, right? No, it's not a dinosaur. It's a disease where your spine is being attacked by your immune system, and it basically takes calcium from your joints and your bones and deposits it in your spine, and eventually it becomes one solid bone, which is horrible. I went through like 6 months trying to get diagnosis. I take a shot every week now that keeps it chill, doesn't want to kill me anymore. But when I was going through that process of trying to figure out what it was, I'm like, okay, I can't do physical stuff anymore, right? Like I shouldn't be jumping out of an airplane if my spine is trying to kill me, right? Like that's just not going to work. That's bad idea. So not going to do that. And then I kind of faffed about for a bit at my parents while I was trying to get my feet under me. And I was like a chef for a while. I did remember the storage unit wars? Remember that was a thing? Like people would buy the storage. I did that for a while. I'd go around, buy things, sell it on eBay, flip things, like hustling, like hardcore. I was an eBay power seller, like just making money any way I can for a while. And then I remember looking at all my friends who had like computer science degrees, like all making money and being semi happy with their life. And I'm like, I can code. Sure. Why not? So I did a coding boot camp, got a job as a coder at just a small company making mobile phone apps. I hated it. Absolutely hated it. It's like no human interaction, just coding all day. I was like, this is not it. This isn't what I want at all. Like this is horrible. So I actually ended up getting fired from that job. Long story. Best thing that ever happened to me, because then I was unemployed for a while. I hit rock bottom pretty hard. I remember I was driving a minivan. This is such a tangent, but yeah, it was a minivan, right? I had this thing for 10 years. It was a family van. And I remember it was like 2 weeks after I got fired, it stopped going in reverse, right? It stopped. Just the reverse gear stopped working. And it was such a good metaphor at the time. It's like, I can't go back, right? There's no going back from here. Like literally, I can't. Like it's literally forward. And I struggled for a bit. I remember looking around, I was in Orange County at the time. Like, what can I do? What do I want to do for a living? And I remember looking at Blizzard's website because Blizzard was just down the road. They're in Irvine. And I was looking at all the different game jobs. I'm like, I love video games. I was always the kid with the video game consoles. I was always the gamer. I love video games. Like Halo changed my life. Like all these games, my entire life. For some reason, every time I thought about being a game developer as a kid, it was always laughed at by adults, teachers, parents, whatever. Like, you can't work in video games. That's not real. People don't make those, I guess, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there unemployed with a car that can't go backwards, okay, I'm on Blizzard's website. What can I do here? And I remember looking at artists. Like, I can't even draw a stick figure without it looking like it has problems, so that's not a thing. And it's like, okay, engineer. I already learned I'm not a fan of coding. Like, for a living, not a chance. Then I saw the job title producer, and I was like, aren't producers just people who give money to a film? Like, how do you apply to be a producer? Like, don't you just give them money? This is stupid. Why would I ever do that? And I click the job posting and I start reading what you do. And I'm like, I've been doing that my whole life. In high school, with clubs, rugby, president of rugby club, like organizing people, getting the best out of people, being organized in your daily life and like really focusing on efficiency. It's like, shit, I've been doing that my whole life. So then I applied, no response. I applied to 83 jobs in total. And the thing was, after about 40 of them, I realized producer wasn't going to happen. So then I was like, you know what? QA tester. The story's always better when you start at the bottom anyways, right? So why wouldn't I want to start at the bottom? Because then when I tell people about it, it's not going to be as cool. So, I applied to 40 of those. And luckily, I got into Naughty Dog, which was such a blessing. And the only reason I got into Naughty Dog, because the recruiter did AmeriCorps, right? And it's like, oh, shit, like this guy did AmeriCorps. He must be good. And then when I remember walking into the Water Gardens in Santa Monica, waiting for the interview, and the QA manager comes downstairs, and first question he asks me when he sees me is, what position did you play? In rugby, right? And I was like, I got it. This is it. Like, literally, I got it just because, I played rugby and I did AmeriCorps, right? That's the only reason my foot was even just a little bit in the door. And then I guess I won them over with my charm. But, it's what it is. It's crazy to think about how little me wanted to just join the army and just be a cog in the machine. And then, growing up and, seeing what you're passionate about, motivating people, being organized, getting efficiency is just, in video games in particular, it's just, I don't know, it somehow all worked together. And I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. It's such a cool industry, right? But I don't know. That's a long answer to that question. But I figured we were going to get all that information out eventually. So I might as well get it out early.
And we love when people just dump their life story on us. It happens a lot, and it's always great.
Yeah.
Always great.
You've done so many interesting things. Like early on in your life, you jumped from like different career, different job, different thing, and probably makes you a better producer because you're good at juggling things, and you've probably worked with a lot of different personalities based on what you've done at different jobs, and being able to work with different personalities gets you far as a producer.
Yeah, 100%. I would say AmeriCorps really did help, and more than anything, because working with difficult personalities is one thing, but living with them 24/7, working with them 24/7, really teaches you how to be patient and deal with a lot of different people. When you go out in the woods, we had like these extended hitches where it'd be a month at a time out in the middle of Wyoming. You'd have like a pack mule bring you stuff halfway. And it was always like day 16, it'd start getting weird. You know what I mean? The same 10 people out in the woods. It's all you see. Like you learn to deal with people and you learn to be patient and like I draw from that experience so much. Like AmeriCorps, like I don't know if it's still gonna be around after 4 years from now, but man, it is a good program. It really gets you in a good mindset. And it's like serving your country too, which I think is a good thing. But you know, it's just it teaches you so much. Like, yeah. Gives you a lot of perspective.
Yeah. That was definitely something that stood out to me when I was reading your LinkedIn because I read all of it. Um, um, yeah. So you said briefly in your bio that you received a presidential medal for service something. Is that tied to doing AmeriCorps?
Yeah, so that's kind of you do AmeriCorps and you could apply for congressional bronze congressional medal of service and a presidential medal of service. It's just more or less part of the program. I kind of regret not applying for the silver one the second year I did it. I kind of wish I did because why not, right? But I didn't. But I still got little lapel pins of congressional and presidential awards, which is cool.
That is pretty cool. Um, so there's also a silver tier. Is there a gold tier for like
Yeah, the gold tier is pretty legit. You have to like spend a lot more time doing community service and really that one. Yeah, I remember like the difference between silver and gold was just like 4 times the difference between bronze and silver, and it's like I don't know if I'm doing that. Like I love America, but not that much. Let's be real. Like I like.
you didn't enjoy living on poverty wages for like multiple years?
So that's the funny thing because it's like and especially in AmeriCorps and Triple C, like you're making $13 a day, you're working your ass off, right? And after 10 months, you don't have a job. And that was the funniest thing was like second question Naughty Dog interview for QA is you're going to be overworked, you're going to be underpaid, and we're firing you in 6 months. Do you still want the job? And my answer was I've been paid less, I've been worked harder, and guess what? They've all been contracts. So bring it. So,
Yeah.
which they like that answer. And it was hard work. And I didn't think the pay was super bad when you're making double time, after 12-hour days. But like, it was tough.
Yeah.
And how was your time in QA? Did you feel like that was really informational for you? Like you learned a lot about the game pipeline from there? Or did you come in knowing a little bit about how games were made?
So, I had a little bit of that coding background and like testing with back end servers and stuff like that. But I didn't know anything about game development. It was my first time learning any of that. And Naughty Dog in particular, I think has an exceptional QA team for a variety of reasons. It's really big. for an internal team. It was 60 for Uncharted 4, which is nuts. I didn't think that was unusual, of course, until I went somewhere else. They have like a whole like month-long course when you get hired, like how to use all the debug, how all of it works. And way with Naughty Dog too, when you write a bug, you're not supposed to just say, "Hey, this is broken," but you're supposed to say like why it's broken. If a VFX isn't triggering, what VFX isn't triggering, right? And you have to use debug to solve all that. So you really, really get like a full-on boot camp course on how to make video games and how everything works more than a surface level at Naughty Dog in QA, which is why like I'm so thankful I started there, because it's such like a catapult into just like being bathed in the knowledge of really getting like game development down, and not only from a nuts and bolts like hardware, and like debug and engine and tools perspective, but also a creative perspective, right? Naughty Dog is like the king of iteration. They do external testing like weekly. They get people in the studio to play the games, and it's absolutely amazing because everyone wants to replicate what they have. I've worked every studio I've worked at. It's always like, how do you do Uncharted 4? And I'm like, well, a lot of work, but no one's willing to put in that kind of work though. They think they can get it for half price, but you really can't. Like that amount of iteration, that amount of effort, like the amount of times I've been asked like, what's Naughty Dog's secret? And it's like, man, like you have people whose whole life has been to get there. Like how are you going to get any more motivated people than that? And people also ask like, what do you think? They work too hard. And it's like, I don't know if they do. I always do the analogy of like, do you tell Michael Phelps that he trained too hard? Right? Michael Phelps, Mike, you didn't see your wife when you were training for the Olympics. You're training too hard. Bro, you won 8 gold medals. Like, Naughty Dog wins every Game of the Year award when they release a game. Did they work too hard? I don't know. Like, controversial opinion. But I thought it was worth it when I worked on Uncharted 4 at least. Because
Yeah.
it's still the game everyone wants to compete with, which is nuts. 8 years later, 9 years later.
Yeah. I think we should state here for the record that Knox just said we should cancel Michael Phelps. That's our controversial take for this episode.
Yeah,
Dude,
right.
when I started this podcast, Knox, I really wanted to have some controversial takes.
Oh yeah.
I tried to start drama all the time to get people to comment. So far, no one's taken the beat, but maybe this is the episode.
Yeah. Cancel Michael
Yeah.
Phelps. He doesn't even love his wife.
Doesn't
Wow.
even love his wife.
Doesn't even
He-
love his wife. I was looking through, and how did you go from working as a QA analyst to becoming a dev coordinator at Sledge? What was your jump there?
So, it's funny, like I worked with a lot of people who've been in the industry for a very long time. And it even started in like the 80s, right? And people who worked on video games that I played when I was, 8, 9 years old. And I was working with a bunch of older devs. And I remember we're talking about the concept of production. It was like, producer, don't just mean your most organized QA tester, right? Like,
Huh.
because back in the
Dang.
day, right? Like that was it, right? It was like, oh, we need someone to do project manager. Who's the most organized QA tester we have? That guy or that girl, right? And that's kind of the way it used to be, right? And yeah. So, anyways, I remember when I was interviewed at Naughty Dog, I told my manager that what's your goal? I'm like, well, eventually I'd want to be a project manager, right? And Naughty Dog didn't believe in those at the time, and he told me that. And I'm like, that's fine, whatever, doesn't matter. And then there was an opportunity. Try not to say too much here, but let's put it this way: the multiplayer team for Uncharted 4 was struggling to hit deadlines with their content, right? And when you legally show a roadmap to the public or something external facing of this is going to happen, then you start getting into legal issues when you don't start hitting those dates, right? And we're approaching that kind of territory with the content. And they didn't basically say, you get a project manager now. They're like, we're going to put someone in here to try to get things to be a little faster. And I remember, the first meeting with all the designers and engineers on multiplayer, yeah, I don't know. It went so smooth. It was just like, let me just ask questions. Like, okay, we need a gun. How long does a gun take? We don't know. Okay. Well, the QA takes about a week to test it. Who touches it before that? Audio. Okay. And then, work backwards, right? And I remember my manager in that meeting, as soon as everyone left the room, I was just like finishing up notes, right? And he looked at me and he's like, you got this. He's like, do you know why I chose you for this? And I was like, why? He's like, so I needed someone who can be told, and sorry for the cursing, but fuck you to your face and keep moving. And I was like, yeah, I can do that. Like, I've done that. Not that that needed to happen in that room at that time, but like, I don't know. It just immediately everyone just is like, okay, we're gonna answer the questions this QA tester is asking. And I did that for about, I don't know, 5-6 months, where I was improved in the process, creating these pipelines. Arguably one of the first producers Naughty Dog ever had. Never in title, of course. They wouldn't have even considered it, but arguably one of the first. And eventually, yeah, I just was like, okay, I want to do this for a living now, not make poverty wages. And so I applied everywhere and I got in at Sledgehammer Games. And yeah, it was great. Like, I remember, that's such a tangent, but it's one of those things where, I interviewed at Sledgehammer and I remember like coming to those interviews with so much energy and enthusiasm. And yeah, they just gave me a shot, right? One of, my manager, Mike Cernick, he loved me right away in the interviews, and even our like executive producer, John Horsley, legend in gaming, especially in the Bay Area, he immediately was just like, this is the guy, right? And even though I had no official experience with any of this stuff, they gave me a shot, and within, no time at all, I already just made a footprint in Sledgehammer, getting zombies for World War II set up, pushed out, live season going. And yeah, I went from project coordinator to senior producer in like 5 years, which is in retrospect pretty nuts. It was just
Yeah.
like, holy crap, like maybe too fast in retrospect. I could have probably waited a couple of years. But at the time, it was just hunger, right? Like, go, go, go. I just need more, more, more. I worked myself like a dog, I'll be honest, but I don't know, I learned a shitload.
I saw that you use shotgun, like you kind of spearheaded that process of like asset tracking and shot grid. Like, what other things that you feel like you helped develop while you were there, and the biggest learning or takeaways of your time at Sledge? Because you did grow a lot and you grew fast, but
Yeah, I did.
your
Uh,
retrospective.
trying to think the biggest things. I learned a lot. I mean, like simplicity is key. Like, I'm a big fan of simple. Even the shotgun thing was, I would say, more or less a disaster. We didn't really stick to it. So I learned really the overhead expectations of people learning things, which is why simplicity is just better. The shotgun is an amazing tool in a lot of ways. It's great for reviewing animations in particular. And like, if you're an animation studio, I think it's pretty much a no-brainer. But like, the way Jira isn't perfect, right? I don't think Jira is perfect anyway, but I do like Jira a lot because I think human brains function pretty well looking at a Jira ticket, because it's kind of like a Facebook profile, right? Important stuff's at the top.
Mm.
You have like, age, ASL over here on the right, and then you have your feed on the bottom of all the up to up, information that's being processed. Human brain, in at least in I guess the first world, we use Facebook. We understand what Facebook looks like. We understand that flow of information, but Shotgun is not the same. It's really complex. And a producer who is able to break down an Excel sheet within seconds of seeing it, it works, right? Like, I understand column, rows, boom, boom, colors, got it. Okay, these things are good, these things aren't. Like, an engineer isn't going to do that. An artist isn't going to do that. A designer's not going to do that. And like, it was just so complex at like a high level for people that it just didn't work. So simplicity is so important when you introduce process, when you introduce software, when you introduce tools. Like, how can this be simpler? Like, eliminate steps, create the lowest amount of friction as possible when you're trying to onboard things. Like, even when you send out a survey, how could you reduce the number of questions? How can you make more of them multiple choice? Like whatever you can do to simplify is one of the big lessons, especially in particular with shotgun. Uh, I think it's a great tool, but it just like I would never ever ever try to get a team on it ever again, unless I was like at an animation studio.
Like the opposite advice we got from someone else we interviewed, Paige
Yeah.
Koblenz. She's a production manager for Netflix on Blue Eye Samurai. She's like, I love Shot Grid, and she
because
onboarded
it's just animation, right? It's an
animation. Yeah.
animation studio, yeah, which makes total sense. Like, so video games, and you could judge me all you want for saying this. I think is the hardest thing in the world to make, and let me explain why. So we solve all the problems that they're solving on Blue Eyed Samurai. Someone's vision, art, right? When is art done, right? When you run out of money or time, or both, right? So we're solving all these art problems that Blue Eyed Samurai has to do. But we're also solving problems that they don't have. We solve problems like scaling, like servers, scaling architecture, having the game run at 60 frames a second. Does Blue Eye Samurai need to run at 60 frames a second on someone's old Xbox One? No, it doesn't, because it's pre-rendered. They can take 80 hours to render a frame. We can't. We have to
And
get 60 of those in a second. So we're solving real world yes no binary problems that tech has to solve, like whether or not you're building software that has to go to 10 million people. And we're solving art, and art is hard. Right, like I said, when is art done? So we're doing both. Video games are literally solving two very different, very real things. Whereas when you're working on TV show, like we had a lot of ex-film and Hollywood people at Sledge, they would say all the time, it's a lot easier. You don't have to worry about like the hardware. Right? So
yeah,
video games stuff. But if I was working in an animation studio, I'd bring shotgun in a second. But video games is too iterative, and it's too based on like yes, no, is this working or not?
Marv, does this make you want to work in video games or TV doing this podcast?
I
Does this
don't know why
inspire
you're
you?
asking that. I like no.
It's hard.
The amount of like just different things that I have heard today that I would have to learn, like Scrum, Jira, Shot Grid, other things.
So many words. Yeah, yeah.
No,
It's
I know PowerPoint and Excel.
That gets you really far though. Like that
For
gets
those things.
it's a good,
like
it's a solid foundation. You'd be surprised.
yeah, those two alone will get you a long way.
No, you're doing a hard enough job as is. You don't need to come across the pond.
I also want to state this for the record. Knox, controversial take number 2. Blue-eyed samurai ain't even shit.
What? Oh, I mean, I never saw it, but I'm just saying the problems they solve aren't quite the same as video game problems.
That's true.
Yeah, I know. I admire very much what they're doing over there. It seems very hard.
Oh
But
yeah, no. I'm
it is
saying
a
they would-
different. It is a different beast than like I've made a video game and I've made an animated show, and I'm like different beasts all on their own.
Yeah.
Hard times. What we do is crazy. We make little pictures come to life. It's cool.
Yeah, we make someone's vision a reality, right?
Yeah, it's awesome. That's why I like doing it. I think it's so fun.
Yeah. Early on in this process, I learned about UV masks and just like the idea of putting skin on something to make it look real. First off, a little horrifying. Second off, like, dang, that's pretty damn cool.
I really want to talk to someone from rigging so they could tell us more about the bones.
Yes.
That
Oh,
they
yeah?
put in things. Like we have a basic understanding over here. I mean, I work with rigging every day, and even then, I'm just barely getting by with when I talk to my rigging team. But I'm like, tell me more about the bones.
I mean, tech art's like such a special thing. Like, I think the most important characteristic for a tech artist is to be the most helpful person you know, right? Like, a tech artist is so important for the team. whether they're the performance side, whether they're the rigging side, whether they're, just the, materials and surfaces. Like, the most important characteristic for a tech artist is to be the most helpful person. Like, everyone I've ever worked with who's been exceptional, it's because they're always there to help all the time, always willing to lend a hand. And it's just, yeah, that is a tech artist. So if you feel like you're the kind of person who just wants to help people, like, maybe tech art might be for you, because that's what you do.
Yeah. Can you tell us more about your time post Sledge? How you got to work in Denmark of all places?
Yes, it was like, nearing the end of COVID when I was like, even during COVID, I was looking to more or less. It was an ultimatum in my head, like. At Naughty Dog, I worked a lot. Like, I remember I even had a few weeks of over 100 hours there, but usually it was around like 80 for a lot of it. And then at Sledgehammer, it pretty much fluctuated anywhere between 50 to 90-hour weeks, depending on what stage of the project we're on. Especially over COVID, it was just a nightmare, absolute nightmare. I hated work from home. I still refuse to work from home. Like, I just refuse. I will never work remote ever in my life. And it was just COVID was so brutal, and I was so tired of working so much that in my head, I'm like, okay, I either leave video games or I go to Europe and see if work-life balance is indeed better over there. Because you hear about it all the time, right? Like, they don't work over there. Like, every outsourced studio in Europe, you're like, God damn, like, do they even work? Like, it's always a bank holiday in Spain. I don't know why. They have so many bank holidays. But, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, let's just do it. Let's just either go to Europe or go to Google, one or the other. And so I started applying jobs all over Europe, and got into IO Interactive. I got into a few of them actually. It was between Arrowhead, which would have been in Stockholm, IO Interactive in Copenhagen, and Playground Games in England. So I weighed the three options, and the thing is, like, Denmark just paid so much better, like, because you're going to take a pay cut going to Europe no matter what, like, straight up, like, half, right? But Denmark paid the most by a bit out of the three, so I decided to give them a shot. And work-life balance is better over there. It just is. Everyone at 4:30, it's gone. Everyone's gone. Even 4 o'clock most days. It's nuts. You're just like, man, nobody nobody works here. And it's great because you eventually pick up on that kind of like being content. I know a lot of people, it's like you have all these surveys, happiest countries in the world, right? It's like the Nordics. And I don't agree with that after living there for a couple of years. I think they're the most content countries in the world. And they are, without a doubt. Like, people are just super content with what they have. They're chill. There's no need to want more. There's no need to yearn for more. There's no struggle, zero struggle. And that doesn't necessarily create a happy population because people are on antidepressants there more than anywhere. But it creates a more content, satisfied population, right? Which is a good feeling, right? Because there's just a lot less stress day to day. And I took a lot of that lesson home. Like, I don't work late at all anymore. I just work 8, sometimes 9 hours a day, and I'm happy. Which I don't know if I would have learned to be able to do that if I didn't work abroad. Because I just as an American, it's always like rise and grind. We're at such a young age. We're told to be amazing, right? Like, valedictorian, do the best, get straight A's. It's all there. Go, go, go. And that's just like a pressure that a lot of the world doesn't get as a child that we do. And I I forgot what even the original question was, but either way, moving to Denmark, it was a great experience. I learned a ton about myself. I guess the biggest lesson you learn when you live in another country is it's not better, it's not worse, it's just different. Like, you'll think it's worse at first because it's different, and then you'll realize there's actually reasons that it could actually be better if you look at it differently. It's like, why don't they do it like this? And then you're like, oh, okay, well, I can see how that makes sense, but I still prefer it my way, so it's just different. And that's how a lot of things are. It's not better, it's not worse, it's just different. And it's just, I don't know, it's so easy to say it, but when you live it, it's such a different experience. Yeah.
Yeah. I know you have a presentation coming up at a conference that's around this topic, correct?
Yes, GDC. Yep.
What do you think it takes to make that transition to work outside of the US?
I think so. I'm going to talk specifically about like coming home, but I do have a lot of perspective on what it takes to make the jump. I
Mhm.
think if you want to do it yourself, understand it's going to be harder than you think. Like I thought it was going to be hard, but it was so much harder than I thought. And Denmark is such easy mode compared to any other country. I feel like because outside of every document being in Danish, like if I didn't have Google Translate, I would have just died. I think. But but Google Translate helps a lot, but it's still so much harder than you think. It's like, there's days where you feel so lonely here in the US, and then imagine feeling that lonely on the other side of the world, right? It's the loneliness is just so real. And, countries like that, like, Nordic countries in particular, people are it's really hard to make friends. It's really hard to, get to know anyone because small talk doesn't exist. And like friend groups are established when you're 1 years old. Not even kidding. When you're 12 months old, you're put into a school. Those are your friends. You'll die with those friends. No one else is accepted in this group. So it's very hard. Like the only Danish friends I had were people who were from the other side of the country because they weren't even allowed in friend groups because they weren't there at 1 years old. So, Jutland friends. I had friends from Jutland and expats. I didn't have any friends from Copenhagen that were born and raised there because they had their friend groups when they were 12 months old. But if you're looking to move abroad, understand it's going to be very hard. It's going to be super challenging. Every day you're going to have no idea what you're doing. And you got to be super okay with accepting that you're just going to make a lot of mistakes. You're going to pay more for coat hangers. You're going to pay more for fruit. You're going to, you're going to make a ton of mistakes. You're going to go to the wrong place for a lot of things. You're going to, yeah, just blow it a lot. And you got to be okay with it. Like I remember my gas bill got sent to for some reason there's like 4 separate electronic inboxes for all your government notifications. And I didn't know there was 4. I thought there was just 3. Why was there even 3? And it turned out my power bill was going or my gas bill was going towards the 4th one only because a lot of them go to multiple. And I got charged like insane amount of like fees, and there was no way because there's no such thing as customer service in those countries, so they don't waive fees. Like that doesn't exist. You blew it. Yeah, I don't care what happens. Like your dog
Uh,
could have died. I don't care. You know what I mean? You blew it. You're paying the fee. Heartless, absolutely heartless. There's this just rule broke. That's it. So and that's it. As an American, you're used to if it wasn't your fault, sometimes you get out of it, right? That doesn't exist there. Not at all. Not in the slightest. You blew it. You blew it. And so even like that customer service thing was just so hard to deal with. I remember trying to get my internet. There was one morning I'll never forget, okay, so I bike across the city, right? 40-minute bike ride, pouring rain, it's going completely nuts. And I'm like miserable. I'm trying to get this damn router because the internet just wasn't working. And I called like 20 people. And so, there's like 100 internet providers instead of just 3. And same with power companies. There's like 45 power companies to choose from instead of just the one you get in America. It's like okay, Denmark isn't social. That's capitalist as hell. There's 45 power companies. But and I go to this internet thing, and the guy's like, I need an ID. I give him my ID, and he's like, this expires, and it's like all IDs expire. And it was one of those situations where I was either going to leave that building with a Wi-Fi router or handcuffs, like straight up. Like I was at the end of my rope. Like, absolutely. I was
Please.
like, yeah, I was losing it. It's like I have a flight tomorrow. I've been trying to get internet for 2 months. Like this is ludicrous. And eventually the manager came in, so I guess I pulled a Karen, which they aren't used to, so it totally worked. And I got my Wi-Fi router.
nice.
But yeah, crazy stuff. But that's what happens. Like everyone who moves abroad has similar experiences where it's just like you're just at your wit's end because everything's different all the time, and there's no exceptions to rules that you're used to having, and it's just so different. Like everything. Imagine every little thing in life is just a little bit different, and it just takes a lot to get comfortable in that situation.
Yeah.
And was that the same case, not just in life, but at work too, where all the work rules different, like the culture of the office?
It was different in a lot of ways. Like so I read a bunch of books on like Danish work culture and everything going into it. And like the Danish meeting was always like a big part of these books. And it's like this idea of this free flowing, everyone gets a voice kind of meeting, and it's very real. But I was not prepared. I could have read 18 books about this and I wouldn't have been ready. Like, imagine every 15-minute meeting is 30 minutes, every 30-minute meeting is an hour, basically all that, right? And imagine that no matter how hard you try, you couldn't get a single action item out of any meeting, right? Any meeting. Good luck. Like,
Ugh.
you literally have someone's arm behind their back about to snap and they'll be like, I think we need a follow up. And it's just like, oh my God. Like I had pre-briefs, the brief, the rebrief, and I'm just like, are you kidding me? And the thing is, like, I'd like to think I was pretty good at running meetings. Like even today, like we just generate action items like completely nuts, just like answers, questions, right? But this just idea where everyone gets a voice and we needed to design this thing perfectly. I think there's like an idea of like finding a perfect design. It probably comes from building chairs, because that's like such a big thing over there. But it's got to be perfect, and it's never perfect. No game designs last first contact with the player. You know what I mean? So whatever you pick, whatever you spend 3 weeks designing the perfect thing, it's gonna fall apart. I promise. And that was such a hard thing to get through over there because it had to be perfect all the time. And guess what? It never was, and it never will be. Like, it's just not how it works.
Yeah.
But that was tough. Sorry.
Now and now you're at free range games. You've returned to the States, the land of shitty chairs.
I mean, those Danish design chairs back in the day, like the Finn Jewels, like the really, really classic chieftain kind of Danish design. They're good chairs. You sit in one, you're like, I get it. I wouldn't pay 30 grand for this, but I get it.
It's a good chair. It's a nice chair. Yeah,
Goes along.
goes a long way. I have the shittiest chair at work. This is also not important to this conversation. But my office chair at work, I think it's hurting me. Like, I feel worse. Like, my body,
Really, like lower back, right? Neck,
my
like what
knees,
part?
I'm
Your knee?
in so much pain all the time. And
Is
then
Get a
I
it?
little
sit
footrest.
in this chair and I feel so much better. I just, ugh. Anyway, it's not important. But you were talking about chairs, and I was like, I need a good
If it's
chair.
your knees, you need a little footrest. That's what I do.
Yeah, maybe that's it. But I'm done, guys.
I'm so sorry.
Not
Rip in
important.
peace,
But
Melissa.
thanks. Can't afford a nice Danish chair. How did you end up at free range games? What games
Uh,
do they make? This is a studio I haven't heard of.
yeah, it's been around for a while though. They did a lot of co-dev for a bit. And the biggest game release has been Return to Moria, which is a Lord of the Rings survival dwarf game in the mines of Moria, which has done exceptionally well, actually, especially, yeah,
Nice.
ever since we released on Steam and Xbox and PlayStation. But as far as how I returned home, uh, I guess the biggest reason was, family health, right? Most Americans have a 2-year expiration date, is what I always say when they move abroad. And that's for a variety of reasons. It could be family, it could be money, it could be your wife is just mad at you. Because usually what ends up happening is you'll get the job abroad, but your wife or your husband doesn't. And they can't get a job because they don't know the language, they don't know the customs, they don't have a visa, whatever. And they end up being miserable, and then everyone goes home because of it. But for my reason, as sad as it is, my dad, I guess, even going back further to put more context to it. So I was looking to move abroad for a while, like, during COVID, I was applying, and I did get a couple offers that I ended up turning down. One was in Singapore. Thank God I turned that one down. I would have been miserable. Too hot over there. And another one was in London, and I turned that one down because my dad had cancer, and I, we didn't know how it was going to be. Right? We didn't know what was going to happen. He ended up beating that cancer, which was great. And then I was like, cool, okay, then I'm going to move abroad. So I moved abroad, and he got a different cancer, right? So, and this time it was a little bit worse. And I got home with about a month left. It was only a week of normalcy, though. It was honestly just the shittiest time. But yeah, I got home. I really wish I didn't start my job right away. I wish I just spent that time with my dad. But I got 1 week where things were kind of normal. And then he went into like septic shock during a routine treatment, and there was a week of just hell, and then 2 more weeks of like the worst time of my life. It was horrible. It was the worst thing ever. Dying is so ugly and shitty and horrible. It was just it's painful to know that happens every single day to people, like the pain and misery of it all. But yeah, that's why I came home. I came home because my dad wasn't doing well, and I'm glad I got home when I did, because if I got home a week later, it would have been too late.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that with us. I'm sorry to hear about your dad, and it sounds painful and for everyone involved.
Yeah, it was rough. It was like 2025 was such a rough time. Like it was almost like it's comical, like not my dad dying clearly, but like at the time, just like because I remember it was like 3 weeks after my dad died. I remember like looking in the mirror, like right before, because I bike to work, right? I bike across the Golden Gate Bridge every day to work, and I remember looking in the mirror, looking myself dead in the eyes, and being like, "It's gonna be okay. Like everything's gonna be fine." And I get out of the house, get on my bike, and I ride one block, and I get nailed by a car. Bam! Absolutely, you get thrown on this hood of this car, and that was after my credit cards got stolen, and all kinds of other stuff happened. Right? It was like back
Yeah.
to back to back. It was
No.
amazing, just bad luck I had. My phone broke, and I dropped it like six
No.
inches on a carpet. Like it was just
Under
like
the carpet.
amazing how much bad luck you could have in like such a short amount of time. Things are better now, but it's
Ugh.
just about keep going. You know what I mean? That's why when you ask like what's the hardest part of your life, is like things still aren't amazing, but you goddamn, you just got to keep doing it. Like it's not gonna the sun ain't gonna stop for you. Like it's gonna start
Yeah.
next day just like any other day. So, but yeah, so but being back in the U.S., I'm glad I'm here. It's everything's bigger. Like, I got a bigger TV, I got a bigger bed.
Bigger
Like
chair.
my apartment, my apartment's bigger. My couch is huge. First couch I bought, I couldn't even get in my apartment. It was so big, so I had to get a slightly smaller couch. But yeah, so
The
Oh my
hubris of
gosh.
man.
but it's tough. But like, I'm glad I'm here. Everything's going really well now. It was a rough start, but you're gonna stand up eventually, right? Like that was it.
That was like a Mile Murphy's Law sequence of events of just like bad, bad, bad. Like, I'm so
Oh
sorry.
yeah, there were just so many things back to back, and so many little things too. Like I said, like my phone breaking, my identity getting stolen, like
What?
just yeah, like it was
The
just like I
credit
had to cancel
card.
my credit cards,
Well,
like
like,
yeah, and like all this stuff. It was just like oh my god, like it was amazing. It really put a lot of things into perspective.
Yeah.
Like I appreciated sunny days more, right? Because in Denmark you don't get those like at all, except for
No.
like 20 of them in June. But like yeah, it's beautiful though. Like I'm really happy where I live. I live in the Marina District, so I get to see the golden. I get to ride my bike across the Golden Gate Bridge almost every day, right? Except when it's really raining, like lately. It's amazing, beautiful, a lot to be thankful for.
Yeah.
it's a beautiful way of looking at it because you have persevered through a lot this past not even that much shorter time. So I don't even know what to say, like, congratulations, or I'm sorry, or maybe
I
both.
don't think it's anything. I mean, like, put it in perspective. Like, day one, I was, like I said, the birth trauma thing, right? Like, I was born dead. Like, they had to resuscitate me. So, like, it was hard day one. Like, come on. It ain't gonna get. I learned the day one life wasn't fair. Like, it's just a lesson I have to
Mm.
remind myself. But, that's the thing, right? Like, I guess going back to game dev and stuff, it's not an easy career path. It's really not. You got to kind of understand that it's going to be hard. You're going to solve hard problems, and a lot of it is just like being okay with difficulty and things being tough. Because at the end of it, it does feel great, right? When you work in video games, when little kids find out, it's always so cool. They always want to know what you worked on, especially when you work on Call of Duty, right? One everyone knows. It's like you're celebrity in a lot of rooms. Like people just want to know, like what's the next Call of Duty going to be? And they really put a lot of, like they really put you up on a pedestal. And even like working at Naughty Dog, I remember like just wearing the T-shirt. In some areas, you just get pulled aside by random strangers in Costco wanting to know more about it. What's going to happen next? Like, what do you do? Do you really work there? And it's just like, it's like just a level of celebrity that's kind of cool, because if someone cares, they know about it and they want to know more. But 90% of people don't really care, which is good because you don't want to be stopped everywhere. So it's cool having that kind of you know I guess like aura with your job. But yeah, it does take work, right? And it does take struggle. It's not an easy job.
For sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. It was an emotional roller coaster, but I'm humbled and so grateful that you took the time to talk to us.
Yeah.
I feel like I rambled so much. Like I hope I actually answered your questions.
You did, you did.
And you know what
Yeah.
the great part about this podcast is? We're really
Mhm.
just like a way to convey your story. Like the important part is not that we get our questions answered. It's really like, did you come here? Did you bare your soul and be honest? That's what we want for you.
For
Um,
sure.
and I'm also grateful that you heard and that you were vulnerable with us. Like that's why we usually start with the easy question. Um, but question one, you're ready to dig into it. I appreciate that so much.
Yeah,
I mean, just saying, like, honesty goes such a long way. Like, even if we're going talking about work still, like work, right? Like, I think a large part of why so many people really looked up to me a lot at Sledgehammer and at IO is, people trusted me, right? Like, I wouldn't lie to people, and I still make it a point not to. Even if management wants to say really bad news in a really kind of false way, but it's technically true. Like I still don't even do that, right? I think treating people like adults goes a long way in being a producer. Is if you have trust and if you have buy-in and people know you aren't going to bullshit them, you're going to get a lot more work out of them. You're going to get a lot more trust. You're going to get a lot better. There's a lot better team dynamics, right? And if the team trusts everyone, they're going to put a lot more effort into things and get better solutions because they're more able to have the conversations they need to improve things. They don't feel like they're being an asshole when they're questioning things because there's trust. And being a leader on a team, I think establishing that kind of trust by being vulnerable, by when you're scared, saying you're scared, and that's fine. Like that's totally fine. Like being brave isn't about not being afraid; it's about being afraid and still doing it anyways, right? And I do think, saying, yeah, I think this is horrible, or, not horrible, but like, I do think this is scary. I do think this is bad, but there's always a solution, right? And having that kind of mentality really builds a lot of trust in the team because they know you aren't going to lie to them. They know that even when things are bad, like not only are you going to tell them it's bad, you're also going to tell them what we're going to do to get through it. And I think that goes a long way.
yeah. That's actually answered my last question before I even asked it. It was like, as a fellow producer, I was curious if you had any producer advice, but that was perfect. Because I think I try to strive for that too. I'm very honest with my artists and everyone on my team about what we're going through, what we're about to get into, if there's anything about to get crunchy or stuff like that. I try to be super honest. And that's always my first policy is like, I'm gonna be very transparent with you guys. This is what's happening. Because I want them to be honest with me.
Exactly. And it always helps to explain kind of what we're going to do together to get through this thing, right? I think like being inclusive with the solutions, being inclusive with all the positive stuff is very important. Negative stuff, this is kind of even a tangent, but like, I was even telling one of my producers on my team the other day, it's like, it's our job a lot of times to eat the dirt, right? Like, as a producer, if something goes wrong, we take the blame. We jump on the hand grenade. It makes things a lot easier and it's fine to be wrong. And I think a lot of people are afraid as a producer to be wrong because they think they'll lose face. But in actuality, you know, be brave, take the chances, be wrong. It's totally fine. But the thing is, when you're wrong, you admit it, right? Like, yeah, I was wrong. I thought I misheard. I thought we're doing this. We're actually doing that. That's my apologies, right? And that's also showing vulnerability. It's showing transparency. It's building trust. And that's the thing. It's hard. Yeah, you got to check your ego. You got to be vulnerable. You got to be honest, and you got to be willing to, be wrong, which is so hard to do for a lot of people. I know it's hard for me at first, but as soon as you see someone who's really good at it, do it a few times, you start to learn how to do it. But
Yeah.
yeah.
It brings to mind this question that a professor of mine had asked one time. When was the first time you witnessed somebody have a healthy conflict, an argument that was resolved peacefully, or like good communication?
I'll tell you right now, I see so much healthy communication at my current company. It's so uplifting at times. Whenever there's honest conversation about scope, decisions that need to be made. Like I have some people that, at first when I first got there, were always just raising a flag, concern, concern, concern. And after a few months of understanding kind of how this company culture works, where people are able to bring up concerns and actually, make differences and have these conversations, my response now whenever someone's like starting to really get nervous and freak out is, do you think that we at leadership on this team is unable to have a conversation about this? And it's always no. Of course they will. They always have. Like, yes, they will. And do you think that they'll have a solution or find a middle ground here? The answer is always like, yeah, they always do. It's like they always do. All right. Because there's so much mature, healthy conversations that happen on this team. And it's always impressive to me here just how that happens because I've seen it the opposite way so many times. Like, working on, different games. I'm not going to throw any names or projects under the bus, but seeing the opposite for so long, it's so refreshing to see the maturity in conversations and conflict at my current studio, and it's actually super impressive that it happens because I've seen it happen the opposite so often.
Yeah.
I love that for you.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a good change of pace.
The professor in this case was talking about how we learn from a very young age what bad communication is, and we're very rarely taught what good communication is. So we go into the world oftentimes unaware that we're not communicating the way we think we are. And it's a skill and a task and a sort of muscle we have to build. Um, so I think it's pretty good advice to say, like, you know what? People in this industry, especially producers, need to be honest because not everybody gets that, at their first go at life and in their first couple of years, just like vulnerability, honesty, good communication, transparency. And we're taught not to treat children as people that are deserving of those things.
Mm.
So they end up learning it when they're teenagers or adults in the workplace,
Mhm.
things like that.
I will say, like, I understand, like, the further up you get as a producer, you do start seeing the reasoning for, like, the withholding of information more and more. And that doesn't mean you start doing it, but you start understanding why. I do have
Yeah.
to admit, like, when you first start out, you're like, why wouldn't you just say these things? And then, when you get further along, you start understanding why some people do, but you start appreciating the people who are good at saying those kind of things in the right way, right? Which is
Yeah.
what I emulate and what I try to do. But it's not easy, right, to drop bad news or to, take the blame for a lot of things, even if it isn't your fault. But in doing so, it'll make everything easier, right? And like I said, it took me seeing someone who is really good at it to really understand, the power of doing so and being able to really, soften the blow with things or, gain a lot of trust in people in presenting information. Like you're saying PowerPoint, it's all you know how to do, but man, like giving a good presentation and being able to speak public, do public speaking super well goes a long way. Especially in the senior and higher levels of production. Like yeah, public speaking, it does help, right? And being able to give a good presentation goes a long way.
Yeah. Do you want to share the name of the person that was showing you these skills?
Yeah, he's still Sledgehammer. Trevor Shack. He's
Trevor.
you know
Sorry.
Trevor? Yeah,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
worked with Trevor. Yeah, he
Trevor.
was
Yeah.
good. He was my manager for a while. He got promoted though right before I left. So I don't know if he worked with a lot of people on the floor level after that, but him and I were joined at the hip for all of Vanguard. So
I never got to really work with Trevor. I think he was on paternity for a while, and then he was so high up. He was like producer god, and I was just like,
he's
he's
like,
too
yeah, head of
far.
production, something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, he got a massive promotion because yeah, I wasn't the only one who saw it. Like even leadership saw it. Like this guy's good. This guy's really
Mhm.
good. Yeah.
On another level. It's like someday I too will be like Trevor in like 10
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. It's the dream, right? One of these days. We'll see.
Yeah. You're on your way, Knox. Everyone already talks about you like you're a Trevor, so.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. We'll see. Uh, I know I can get a room full of people excited. Let's put it that way. I'm just trying to use that to my advantage. So
It's true.
yeah.
Well, it's been wonderful talking to you, and I can't wait to tell everybody that we got to talk to you. They're gonna be so jealous. They'll be like, "Oh, you got to talk to Knox." I'm gonna brag. Have a wonderful evening. It's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Likewise.
Thanks
Uh,
for agreeing to meet with us.
yeah,
Yep. And
absolutely.
well, that was our conversation with Knox. It was amazing. I understand the hype now, you know?
Yeah. I don't say this often, but what a great storyteller. I really value
Yeah.
that in a person. I think that's such a great skill, and I really appreciated having that on showcase during our conversation and just, like, hearing this amazing story.
Definitely. I was entranced the whole time. The emotional roller coaster we were on, like at the beginning, just like, wow, he did so many fun things to inspirational. Wow, he finally did it. He got a job in the games. To wow, cool, he made it to Denmark. And then like bam, 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 all these terrible things. It was just like, now he's doing okay on the upswing, but all meanwhile having this great attitude and being
Yeah.
like having this drive and this passion and dedication to, what he does. Really wonderful person.
Yeah. Another
He's great.
celebrity guest appearance on our
I
podcast.
know. We're so lucky. How do we keep getting so many celebrities?
I don't know.
I know we said we weren't gonna get celebrities on our podcast, but we're liars. We have so many.
I know.
Lucky us. Get out of the way. What's a podcast with celebrities? Jordan Jesse Go. That's a podcast with a lot of celebrities. Get out of the way. Not One Right Away's got all the cool people on it now.
True.
I wanted to close with a quote, but it made me think of like what he was saying about failing, needing to fail to be a good producer. Because I was like, I'm so sick of failing, but it was, grounding me. It's by Samuel Beckett. I'm sure
I knew
you're familiar.
I knew it.
Because it's great. And I think Professor Andrew Manley would love this.
Yeah.
The quote goes, ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, fail better. Yeah, you just have to fail better. It's gonna be okay. It's good to fail.
So true. Every time I see that quote just sort of floating around, I
In your
immediately
brain,
think
like rent-free.
Rent-free clowns. Rent-free your little clown nose and your clown shoes and all of that hay.
So much. Yeah, the people don't need to know about that story today.
Yeah, I'll edit this out. They don't need to know.
No, they need to know about the quote. I read that for them.
No. I'll edit the part where I'm talking about the clowns.
And I'm just gonna put it back in. Well, let's say goodnight to our listeners. Good night, listeners.
Goodbye.
Remember to like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends to listen. And our cover art is done by Les. And the podcast is edited by Marve. Good job, Marve.
Thank you.
And remember,
there's
not
one
right
way
to get your first job in the video game industry.
There's not one right way to decide law school is actually too expensive.
There's not one right way to do a bunch of odd jobs or join the AmeriCorps.
There's not one right way to be the most organized QA tester.
And there's not one right way to move to Denmark, realize maybe this isn't it, and then move back to America.
So true. So true.
Thanks so much for listening. Bye.
Bye.